guys, this is Phil from the Goose Hammock Shop. Been asked to do another tuna focused seminar. What we're going to talk about today is kind of like an intro to run and gun for tuna, which in itself is a huge subject. We're going to try and consolidate it. Jake has asked the internet, a load of you guys and girls have asked a load of questions, so thanks very much for that. I'm going to try and answer as many as possible. And I believe we're doing a giveaway at the end of this. Not quite sure what yet, but I'll explain all later when Jake tells me. So, run and gun for tuna. Really exciting. Great way of doing it. It's kind of, for me, it's kind of September, October time I tend to be doing it. Normally when the tuna are actually chasing the half-beaks around Stellwagen Bank. Me personally, I'm a really big fan of the surface bite, so we're popping rather than jigging. Jigging's still very successful. The fish are great because you can target smaller fish. There's a lot of talk about catching huge fish on the spin. If you're not really experienced, have a really experienced crew, it's going to be the hardest, most miserable 3 hours of your life, hooking into a really big fish on the spin. But when you get into the recreational size fish, you're like a 70-inch fish for me is like 10-15 minutes to the boat. Really good fight, really exhilarating. They'll take line, you'll grow it back. So let's talk about the when first. Like I say, it tends to be when the bait fish are on the surface. If you're running, gunning, jig and pop, you're going to be looking for birds. Shearwaters are our friends. You want to be out there. You're looking for shearwaters. You're not looking them from just a load of them just bucking it one way. You're looking for them milling, or looking for them looking attentively at the water whilst they're flying. Or even from a jigging perspective, if you see a raft of shearwaters just sat there on the surface, especially as they're sticking their heads under, they have an incredible subsurface vision, and they're actually looking down in the water. They're trying to find the bait and the tuna. So if you see the shearwaters, you're really in a good position. The other big indicator is actually whales. One of the questions today was, jigging blind, casting blind into whales. Yes, don't cast over the back of a humpback because you're potentially going to snag it. It's illegal, and you're going to chafe your line for a start because of the barnacles on its back. But do be very conscious. The tuna, when humpbacks, especially when they're fishing on pogies, sand eels, mackerel, when they come up and they bubble feed and they come up to the surface, there's lots of confused, disorientated, injured baits get thrown around from these giant creatures as they feed, and the tuna are smart enough to dial in. They'll dart in and they'll take it. And I've watched tuna almost take mackerel out of a whale's mouth. Okay, so don't be afraid of casting around the area. Humpbacks especially are a huge bait indicator for us, and the birds will be there anyway because they're doing just the same thing. So that's kind of a little bit of from a where perspective, depends where everything is, depends where the bait is. You're not going to be jigging and popping for tuna if there's no bait. East of Chatham is great for us down southeast, whether it be getting out to the Regal Sword or something, all the way up the Chatham coast. Stellwagen's phenomenal. Another question is, where's the best place in Cape Cod Bay to cast for tuna? Don't, because the vast majority of tuna that are caught in Cape Cod Bay are huge. They're too big for recreational anglers anyway. They're a commercial fish, and there's too much lobster gear around where they fish. You are point blank not going to catch them on the spin, so try not to. But Stellwagen's great. You can start anywhere from the southwest corner, southeast, work your way up potentially towards Middlebank. Just work your way up the side. The elbow, it's called, where the shipping lane takes a turn left into Boston, is a really good area, and you get a lot of small fish up there and around Peaked Hill Bar and off the golf ball, as we call it. But they can be anywhere. They're a highly migratory species. They will chase the bait. Wherever the bait is, you're going to find a tuna eventually. Okay, and from a gear perspective, tuna rods start at like $250. One of the staples is this one. This is the VS Van Stoel VS325. It's a glass rod. It's really bendy. Can't really show it here so much, but very, very flexible rod. $270, I think. And then you can get specialists. This is our own one that we made under the Mighty Fish. This rod is slightly lighter. This is great for small tuna, great fun. I've had fish to about 55 inches on this. I weight this with a 14,000 class reel. And then you get up to This is another one of ours. This is the Team Goose Classic, made for us in the Patriot factory. The blank is wrapped for us locally. I have caught 500-600 pound fish on this, and it's incredibly light. It will take it. And the last couple I'll show you. This is the Hunter Predator. Give me the roll of my reels. Hunter Predator, anything from 7.7 to 8.2. The longer the rod, the tougher it gets, in so much as the leverage is more on you. I have caught big fish. There's a great picture on our Instagram of me nearly dying on a big fish on one of these hunters. I absolutely folded the rod on a, I don't know how big it was, 500-600 pound fish. The rod was great, it took it. My back was telling me how old I am. And then finally we get into something like this. This is the carbon. This is actually a glass rod coming into a carbon fibre backbone. But you know, you're moving up to $1,000 rod here, so anywhere from like $250 to $1,000 for your rod. And how you position that with a reel. There's some entry-level reels. I'm a big fan of the Saragossa by Shimano. The Saragossa 20K is probably our most popular. They have just launched a 14,000, which is this size. This is actually the Stella, but the 14,000 is a fantastic size for smaller fish. It's a lot lighter than the 20K. And then Daiwa, again, this is the Saltiga. This is the 18K. This is a big fish reel, really solid, great drag. And in fact, if you are trying to target the bigger fish, in my opinion, and it's just an opinion, you have the Saltiga and you have the Shimano Stella. And then you have everything else. Saltiga, Stella. These are the guns in a gunfight. Everything else is a knife, in my humble opinion. So that's the reels. And then what are you going to chuck? Well, you basically, don't chuck green if they're feeding on pink. So you've got to match the hatch. So big favourites for me. This is the Strategic Angler sinking a Spada. Okay, and this is in a Sori or a half-beak pattern. The reason we tend to fish sinking a lot up here is the shearwaters are little buggers and they'll jump on your bait straight away and you don't get any prizes for hooking a bird. Okay, so that works really well. That's by Strategic Angler. This is a Sorry Charlie by Siren Lures. Jason makes a wonderful lure. This actually is a floating, but the Deep Sea Seductress is another very popular one. We're actually sold out, so I'll show you one of those. Those are great lures. And then this is a new one. This is more of a jig now, so you can cast this, but it also will sink. This is the Naya series by Strategic. You can actually see the weighting in it. It's very transparent. This actually has a lovely fluttering action when it sinks, but you can actually let this sink and do a slow retrieve, so you're now into a jig. Most people see jigs as just a piece of metal. It's like, no, you can have some beautiful lures that actually jig. The Deep Sea Seductress by Siren is a great jig as well. If you are on more of a budget, those are all in the $100 mark. One of the greatest tuna lures of all time is the Daiwa. Can you hear this? You can hear the rattle in it. Okay, this is Dorado Slider by Daiwa. Incredible action to it. Just literally swiping movements, and this is just going to jig from one side to the other. Shimano make a great product called the Orca. No rattle in it. This is a great one. I use this year a lot at the canyons actually for yellowfin. And then when you can look at that, you're going to say, right now, how are you going to rig these things? If we say we've got this one, if you're using a a Naya say with just the back hooks. Commonly I use, I'll use one of these. This is the Raptor by BKK, it's a treble. I'm a big favourite of inline singles. So actually if I was say fishing the Espada, what I do with the Espada, I fish that with another BKK, and we're very honoured to be the biggest and only legitimate reseller of BKK in the country right now. This is the Lone Diablo. It's an insanely strong hook for its size. And actually what we've now done is we've started to import, and we're selling their split rings, which actually have a flatter profile than the owner Hyperwire, and they're less prone to opening. So that's kind of like the lures. We talked about the reel, so I'm just flipping around here. You got a reel, obviously you ain't going to catch a lot on that because it's got nothing on it. So I think a couple of the questions were, what line do you use? and what size line do you use. Personally, I use Cortland C16 hollow core. I'm a big fan of Cortland, and I love their C16 hollow core. And the reason I love hollow core is I can back splice a loop into it, and then I use Basil Papas's wind-on leaders. That gives me the ability to change my leader strength or length really quickly whilst we're out on the boat. When you're chasing fish on the surface, they barely see the line, so you can actually fish a 12-foot mono leader. If there's bigger fish in there, you want to fish it heavy, so your fish might want 130. If there's smaller fish, you might bring it all the way down to 60-pound test. And when you're jigging, the fish do get to see the line more. You're more inclined to actually run a longer leader. And you, obviously sometimes you're coming right down the breaking strain to that 60-pound test. And with all that in mind, being able to interchange it very quickly is important. That's why I like the hollow core. On a 14K, I put 60-pound test on, and on a 20K, so 18, 20, you know, the big ones, I put 80-pound hollow core on, and you get about 450 yards on it. I don't use a top shot, I'm just using straight to the leader, so you need to be mindful, you need to set your drag a little bit softer. There's lots of mystique about how many pounds of drag people put on. I get people coming in my shop telling me how they were fighting a fish at 50 pounds of drag. We've got video which you might see one day of us hanging 50-pound weights off the side of my boat with rods on, and I guarantee you put 50 pounds of drag on this baby, which will take it, you'll probably end up the wrong side of the boat. Okay, so you're really fighting at like 20 to 30 pound drag on there, which is plenty. You're really going to know about your arms are going to be on fire. But of course your line test is going to take it. So the other option of hollow core, which I'm a big fan of, is to use braid. Daiwa J braid or Shimano Power Pro or Cortland Master braid work great. I use Cortland Master braid on mine. Again, I'm using an 80-pound test. You can't splice it as easily, so what you actually do is I do a simple triple surgeon's knot to give me a loop and use a wind-on leader. There's a couple of knots you can use to get from your main line to your leader. You can use an FJ or a Sabile knot. You can use the Tony Magna knot, which is an Italian knot, and the PR knot, which we're just about to publish. Actually, my friend Eduardo ties this amazing. You need a bobbin to do it, but it's the lowest profile knot you can actually do. It's almost as good as a wind-on leader, and it has 100% knot strength, and that's called the PR knot. If you Google that, you need a bobbin to tie it, so it's a bit complicated. So that's kind of like an intro on the gear. So I did lift one lower out on the downside. This is the Ron Z by a guy called Ronnie, who's unfortunately no longer with us. Cape Cod guy, made these lures, soft plastic. You can cast them to breaking fish. You can actually let them sink and jig them up. Probably caught more tuna than any other lure in the northeast, so I shouldn't forget you. Sorry, Ronnie. So that's a bit of an intro. Snakey, chuck me a question or two to send me the right way.
How should you approach breaking fish?
How should you approach them? Do not be the guy who steams straight into the middle of a feed. The key thing, in my opinion, with run and gun for tuna is to approach really slowly. And what you need to do is you need to work out where the fish are going to be, not where they are. So if you see fish breaking, look at what direction they're breaking in, because normally they're chasing something, so there'll be a consistency to the way they're going. Basically try and get 200 yards in front of it and let the fish come to you, because they'll get much closer to you. They are going to get spooked and what they call put down by you charging in on top of them, and you are going to piss off everybody else around you if you're that guy. So don't be that guy. Mooch on up on them really slowly, get them within casting distance. And whilst I'm on that, from an approach, don't cast at the fish, cast 5 yards in front of the fish. Again, it's all about working out where the fish is going to be, not where it is. Next.
What time is the best to find them on top tides and time of day?
Okay. Time of day can be all over the place. There's a big tuna saying, first light, first bite. Very true. Tuna predominantly feed by sight. And if you get an overcast, really dark night, they haven't fed as much at night because they haven't seen the baits. So they'll be more aggressive at first light. It can be quite magical. That first hour of daybreak is very magical. And the other thing tuna like to do is they get more aggressive at the slack ends of the tides. Okay, and they also prefer a medium tide, so in the middle of the moon cycle. Tends to better, not on a new moon or a full moon when the tides are really ripping. Great times for bass, but we fish, we get really aggressive for tuna in the middle of the moon cycle. Excuse me.
What are some spots/techniques for a small center console to target?
Okay, I mean the small center console is perfect for run and gun. A friend of the store, Jay Goodwin, and his son Corey are insane tuna catchers, and they're running around in a 21-foot boat, and they catch more tuna than I do. They're incredible at it. So the boat size isn't going to dictate what you can do. The weather is going to dictate what you can do. So just be really mindful on a small boat that you don't want to be going out when it's 4-footers. What I would say on a small boat is you've got a great advantage. Most of them are relatively quick. They're very agile. Think ocean going liner versus a speedboat. So you'll be able to get up on those fish. You create less disturbance, less noise. So you should be able to get closer to breaking fish. Also, what I'd say is, from a technique perspective, when you go tight, what you want to do is get on the bow of your boat and let a tuna, a 50-inch fish will pull a 21-foot boat quite happily around. So let the fish actually pull you around. You'll tire the fish quicker and just lean back into it and enjoy the sleigh ride. But like I say, it's the weather. And from a spots perspective, think about where you can go. It's not necessarily safe if the forecast is a bit iffy for a day to find yourself 30 miles east of Chatham. You could fish right outside the Chatham Inlet, for example. So just think about the weather's going to dictate where you can go, your length offshore. And if you are on a smaller boat, ideally buddy up with somebody, or find out somebody else who's going to be out in the area, so you can keep radio contact.
Last one, leader length and weight for different applications.
Okay, I think they mean leader strength probably. So again, I think I highlighted this earlier. For me, when I'm casting, I use a 12-foot leader. I like that because I have enough of the tagline, and I have a couple of loops of it on the spool. You need to make sure that the lure and everything is tight when you cast, because you don't want loose line coming out, because that line, because it's so heavy, you're going to be using 60 to 130 pound test. It's going to be quite big, so it's going to spring off the reel. That's why I only have a couple of terms. You don't want a 16-foot 80-pound leader, because as soon as you take the bail off and release the lure, it's going to flare up. And potentially with these heavier lures that are 4+ ounces, you run the risk of folding the first guide. If you get a wind knot, it'll loop on it. From a strength, depends. It's a case of, if you're fishing for small fish and it's a nice day, they're going to be able to see your line. If you're fishing for bigger fish and it's a really snotty day, they ain't going to see anything, so you can go all the way up to 130. 130 is about all I won't go more than that for casting. From attaching lures to it, personally, I like to use a swivel and a split ring, which I crimp on rather than tie on because it's quite bulky. There are knots you can do. Again, Eduardo showed us one. He showed us the, oh my god, I can't remember what it was now. He showed us a knot yesterday. I can't remember. It would be on the video. There's other knots you can use to tie mainline. I prefer to crimp at 80 pound because it's quite absolute, and a little bit of flash on there is what they're looking for anyway. So don't be worried about fish seeing a crimp.
That's it. Giveaway time.
All right. Thanks very much for listening. Feel free to DM us if you've got any other questions. We've got the whole line in stock. What I would say, it's a cheesy thing as a tackle store owner to say, is gear up early this year. There's lots of shortages in the inventory from every vendor. Doesn't matter what shop you go to, we're all struggling to get inventory. Don't wait to the sort of 31st of May before June the 1st start of tuna season to get geared up. Me and my team, we're all very passionate tuna fishermen. We'd love to help you. We'll spend as long as it takes to actually advise you. And remember, no questions too stupid. I ask loads of them all the time. And my son behind the camera, even more so.
Brutal.
Brutal, but hey, harsh but fair. So what's the giveaway, Jake?
So, I ran it earlier downstairs.
So we use some like Ninja testing or whatever it is. It's a random generator in the. It's an app on the phone for Instagram. And what are we giving away, Jake?
We are giving away an Outcast lure.
That's the Outcast lure. We did that, yeah, we posted that a couple of days ago. Outcast lures, made locally, they're not so much tuna fishing as bass lures. Great bass lure, I was using them off Norset Beach last year. Custom made in the northeast, all wooden lures, really cool. Okay, so Jake's given me the firearm, he's on the tit. Joseph McNamara, you are the winner, you got an Outcast lure. Congrats, DM the store and give us your address and we'll send it to you. Well done, mate, congrats. There's his phone back. Tell us on the Instagram whatever you want us to do next. Last thing I'm going to say, thanks for watching, putting up this crazy English old fool. Don't forget, subscribe to our Instagram if you're not on it, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel because we're trying to do at least 2 videos a week. But like I say, DM us, Jake will pick it up. If there's any other subjects on fishing you'd like us to cover, as long as we know a bit about it, we'll happily deliver a seminar on it. Thanks for listening, guys and girls. Thank you.